The truth about my near-death experience and how love blinded me 2026. You know that moment when everything you thought you understood about yourself, about strength, about connection, suddenly cracks wide open. I almost died, and the scariest part was how my love blinded me. When a single event rewrites the rules of how you see the world and how you see love. For me, it wasn't a dramatic confession or a grand betrayal. It was the aftermath of a car crash on a warm summer night in July 2026. One ordinary drive home turned into a shattering collision that left me broken in more ways than one. What followed wasn't just physical recovery. It was a slow, intense unfolding of how trauma can pull you towards someone so completely that you almost lose the very core of who you are. This is the story of how I survived the wreck, how I fell into a kind of attachment that felt like salvation but carried its own hidden weight, and how I finally found my way back to something real. It's honest, it's raw, and if you've ever wondered where the line is between love and dependence, stay with me, because the lessons I learned in those hospital rooms, in the quiet nights that followed, and in the silence that finally forced me to look inward, changed everything. Hey everyone, it's Benjamin here. Welcome to a story I never planned to share so openly, but one that I believe needs to be told. If you've ever gone through a major life disruption and found yourself leaning on someone in ways that later surprised you, or if you've questioned what healthy love really looks like after hardship, this one is for you. Today, I'm walking you through the car crash that nearly took my life, the intense connection that formed in its shadow, the warning signs I pushed aside, and the powerful realization that helped me rebuild. It's not a highlight reel. It's the real, sometimes uncomfortable truth about trauma, vulnerability, and rediscovering yourself. I'm grateful to be here telling it, and I hope it resonates with you. Let's go back to the 3rd of July, 2026. The air was warm, carrying that sweet summer scent of cut grass and distant barbecues. I was driving home after a long day, windows down, favorite playlist loud enough to match my mood. Life felt steady. I had plans for my upcoming birthday, simple joys lined up, the kind of ordinary contentment you don't fully appreciate until it's tested. They appeared suddenly, cutting through the dusk like a warning I couldn't process in time. The screech of tires filled the air, followed by an impact that felt like the world folding in on itself. Metal twisted, glass shattered. My body absorbed forces I still can't fully describe. One moment I was in control, the next everything went black. I woke up in the hospital to a symphony of machines and concerned voices. Tubes ran across my chest and arms. Pain radiated from my broken femur, my ribs, and the deep concussion that made the lights overhead blur and pulse. Doctors spoke in measured tones about internal bleeding, surgical interventions, and the long road ahead. I remember thinking, with surprising clarity, that this might be the end. My life didn't flash before my eyes in neat scenes. It came in fragments, laughter with friends, quiet mornings, unfinished goals, and then the fear settled in, not dramatic panic, but a heavy, persistent weight of uncertainty. In those first hours, time stretched. Every beep of the monitor felt eternal. Every shift in the bed sent fresh waves of discomfort. I was alive, but I was also profoundly changed. That crash lasted mere seconds on the clock, yet it reshaped the months that followed in ways I could never have anticipated. The early days in the hospital remain a haze of medication and exhaustion. Beeping monitors, the sharp smell of antiseptic, nurses moving with quiet efficiency. But through that fog, one consistent presence stood out. Every time consciousness pulled me back, they were there. Morning rounds when sunlight first touched the window. Long afternoons when the pain made even small talk feel monumental. Late nights when sleep refused to come and worry filled the quiet hours. They brought water, adjusted pillows, sat in the uncomfortable chair by my bed, and spoke words of reassurance that anchored me. At first, their steadiness felt like a gift I didn't know I needed. I was terrified of what the future held for my mobility, my independence, my sense of self. Having someone who showed up without fail created a sense of safety amid the chaos. I held onto their hand and their presence like a lifeline. Their visits became the part of the day I anticipated most, a bright point in an otherwise difficult recovery. Looking back, I see how natural it was. When your body betrays you and the future feels fragile, the human heart searches for something solid. In my vulnerability, that consistent care felt profound. I didn't question the speed or intensity. I simply accepted it as the support I desperately needed. What I couldn't see yet was how that dependence was beginning to reshape my emotional landscape, quietly and deeply. Physical recovery tested every limit I thought I had. Endless sessions of physical therapy where progress felt agonizingly slow. Nights where pain medication wore off and discomfort kept me awake. The frustration of relying on others for basic tasks I once took for granted. Simple things like showering or walking short distances became victories that still left me drained. Amid this grind, their presence grew from comfort to central focus. Every message, every visit, every call became the emotional highlight I organized my days around. I found myself counting hours until I would see them again. Conversations with them pulled me out of the frustration and gave me something positive to hold on to. Without fully realizing it, my energy shifted. Instead of pouring everything into rebuilding my strength and routines, I invested heavily in nurturing this connection. The crash had stripped away much of my independence. In its place, I gradually surrendered more of my focus, my decisions, and my sense of self to the relationship. It didn't feel like a choice at the time. It felt necessary. The fear of facing recovery alone, of confronting how close I had come to losing everything, made the attachment feel essential. I told myself this was love in its purest form. Deep down, though, it was also rooted in the uncertainty that lingered after the accident. The stronger the attachment grew, the more it masked the work I still needed to do on myself. As weeks turned into months, patterns emerged that deserved closer attention. I began adjusting parts of my life to align more closely with what seemed to keep the connection strong. Small preferences at first, changing daily habits, sidelining certain opinions, reshaping routines, then bigger shifts, pulling back from some friendships, deprioritizing personal goals that once mattered deeply. Each time a friend or family member voiced gentle concern, I brushed it aside with familiar responses. They don't see the full picture. This is what I need right now. It's different for us. I genuinely believed those words because the alternative, facing the depth of my emotional reliance, felt too overwhelming. The crash had left visible injuries that were healing under medical care. The invisible ones, the ones tied to fear of loneliness and sudden loss, influenced me more than I admitted. I was seeing the relationship through a lens shaped by trauma, where any potential distance triggered disproportionate anxiety. Maintaining the connection began to feel like protecting my fragile sense of stability. Those signs accumulated gradually, each one easy to rationalize in the moment. Only later could I see how they formed a quiet redirection of my life's direction. One unremarkable evening, everything shifted. For the first time in a long stretch, I found myself completely alone. No visitors, no messages lighting up my phone, just the quiet of my space and the weight of my own thoughts. In that stillness, a single question surfaced and refused to fade. If this person were gone tomorrow, who would I be? The answer unsettled me deeply. I realized I no longer had a clear sense of my own identity separate from the relationship. The months since the crash had been consumed by healing my body and anchoring myself to someone else. I had paused the deeper work of rebuilding who I was at my core. That realization landed with a force that rivaled the accident itself. The crash had threatened my physical life. In the time afterward, I had been slowly drifting away from my own sense of self. The fear that accompanied this awareness was sharp, but it also brought clarity. It was the turning point that forced me to confront what I had been avoiding. The most challenging lesson wasn't the physical survival. It was understanding the difference between genuine connection and the kind that asks you to fade into someone else. Real love creates space for both people to exist fully. It doesn't require erasing your boundaries, your interests, or your individual growth. It stands beside you while you heal, rather than becoming the sole reason you feel okay. For a long time, I believed that clinging tightly was the way to move forward. The truth I uncovered is that true strength comes from confronting your fears directly and rebuilding your foundation from within. Healthy love enhances your life. It doesn't replace the need to know and value yourself. Once that distinction became clear, my recovery took on new meaning. I began focusing on small, consistent steps to reconnect with my own goals, friendships, and inner voice. The process was gradual and sometimes difficult, but it felt authentic. With this new perspective, I started the slower, more intentional work of reconstruction. Physical therapy gained fresh purpose because it was for me, not just to appear stronger for someone else. I reached out to friends I had distanced myself from and had honest conversations. I revisited hobbies and interests that had fallen aside. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns of seeking external reassurance crept back in. But each time, I reminded myself of that quiet evening and the question that changed everything. Progress came in quiet victories, a solo walk that felt empowering, a decision made independently, a night where solitude brought peace instead of anxiety. I learned to appreciate support without making it my entire emotional world. The relationship, where it continued, evolved into something lighter and more balanced. Where it didn't, I found the strength to move forward with gratitude for the role it played in my survival, while choosing growth on my own terms. Reflecting deeper, I explored how trauma can reshape our approach to relationships. The accident created a heightened need for safety and certainty. In that state, it's common to seek out anything that soothes the fear quickly. What feels like profound love in those moments can sometimes be the mind's way of protecting itself from processing pain alone. Understanding this didn't make me regret the connection. It helped me approach future relationships with clearer eyes. I became more attuned to my own emotional state and better at recognizing when I was reacting from unresolved fear versus genuine compatibility. This awareness has become one of the most valuable outcomes of the entire experience. It allows me to show up more fully in my life and in my connections with others. Today, years removed from that July night, I carry several truths with me. First, resilience isn't about never breaking. It's about how you choose to rebuild. Second, love should never cost you your sense of self. Third, the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. Nurturing that foundation makes every other connection healthier. I still feel gratitude for the person who showed up during my darkest hours. Their presence was a meaningful part of my story. But I'm even more grateful for the version of myself that emerged afterward, one who values independence alongside closeness. When I revisit the hospital memories now, they feel distant, yet instructive. The beeps, the pain, the uncertainty, all of it shaped me. The attachment that followed taught me about the delicate balance between needing others and standing strong on your own. I no longer view the crash as purely tragic. It became a catalyst for deeper self-understanding. The journey through dependence to autonomy showed me capacities I didn't know I possessed. If you're going through your own version of this, whether it's recovery from an accident, emotional hardship, or questioning a relationship, know this: you are capable of more than you realize in your lowest moments. Allow yourself support, but don't lose sight of your own voice. Healing takes time, honesty, and sometimes the courage to sit in silence and ask the hard questions. The greatest gift from my experience is the freedom that comes from knowing who you are, apart from any crisis or relationship. Life can change in seconds, but the work of rebuilding lasts a lifetime, and it's worth every step. Thank you for listening to my story. Subscribe for more. If it touched something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember, sometimes the real survival begins after the immediate danger has passed. Take care of yourselves. The accident showed me how fragile life can be. The aftermath taught me how strong I could become.